Hey there, it's Mind Blowing Thursday. So let's start off with a few breaths together and then we'll make some time for meditation. So, first, let's go ahead and bring our palms to touch. Take your right hand to your heart, take your left hand to your belly button. And you can just start off by checking in with yourself. See if you can notice the beating of your heart, the rise and fall of your breath. And then inhale through the nose, let the belly fill. Exhale with a sigh. Again, inhale through the nose, let the belly fill. Exhale with a sigh. And then the last one, inhale through the nose, let the belly fill. And release it with a sigh. All right, welcome. It's nice to get grounded into this space on a Thursday. Let's go straight into our meditation. So come to a comfortable seat. Bring the shoulders up and back. Let's do it again, up and forward. And then just let the hands rest gently in the lap, palms facing down for grounding posture. Feet are flat on the floor, back is straight. And bring the awareness to the crown of the head. So just allow that area to be warm and relaxed. Relax your forehead. Relax the eyes. Let them close softly or remain slightly open with an unfocused gaze. Relax the mouth and the jaw. Relax the throat, the chest, the hips and the belly, the thighs and the calves. Relax the feet. And then scan the body from the feet, past the ankles, past the calves, past the knees and the thighs, the hips and the belly. The heart center right in the middle of the chest. The throat chakra right at the middle of the throat. Scan the body all the way up to the crown of the head. And then scan the body all the way from the crown of the head back to the soles of the feet. Just check in, see if there's any area that needs adjusting or needs relaxation. And we're going to come into a short meditation. So just bring your awareness to your breath. Don't change the way you're breathing, just notice the breath, the sensation of air as it enters and leaves the body right at the tip of the nostrils. So you might notice that the air is cooler on the inhalation, warmer on the exhalation after it's mingled with the warmth of your body. See if you can notice. If the mind wanders, just redirect it back to the breath. We'll just be here for just a few more seconds, training our mind to do one thing at a time. Noticing the sensation of breath as it enters and leaves the body right at the tip of the nostrils. And relax your concentration. You're going to come back to your normal level of awareness, releasing that short breathing meditation. All right. So I wanted the meditation to be short today because sometimes we don't feel like we have a lot of time. We may not feel like we have 10 minutes to sit still. So if you are watching on YouTube, there's a 1 minute meditation that you can grab a hold of, right? And I think I might post a 5 minute one for you guys because meditation doesn't have to be long. It's great if you can work up to it, but sometimes just calming your mind for those 3 breaths or for 60 seconds of meditation where you're just following the sensation of air as it enters and leaves the body, that can be plenty. It can be plenty. All right, so today what I want to talk about is consciousness. So our topic is, are you conscious or are you just passing through life? And I would say, let me think about this for myself. I don't think that I was what I would call conscious until, I have to think about that. Maybe like in my 40s or something like that. And the way that I would define consciousness is having an awareness of your non physical self and the aspirations of your non physical self and the path of your non physical self. I think that that's how I would define it. So having an awareness of the existence and also the journey, right? So you could think of it as maybe being spiritual. Um, it could maybe be tied into being religious, but I don't think necessarily. Um, and the reason that I wanted to talk about this today, I had a conversation with one of my book coaching clients a while back, and she was working on her book. And she said to me, she kind of leaned in and she said, "Well, Trish, only about maybe 20% of the people are conscious." And you know how we surround ourselves with people and then we think everybody else is like us? We live in these kind of silos. So, because I've been on this kind of spiritual journey, this mindfulness, awareness, conscious journey for so long, I hadn't thought about that. Um, so, that was kind of a little opening for me. And I was thinking about that before I got on this with you today. Is that, wow, so if only, the numbers don't matter. It could be 20%, it could be 50%, it could be 10%. Who knows? We don't really know. But I do know that there was a time in my life when I was very much in whatever the system was. So I, went to school, I went to work, I watched entertainment, I socialized with my friends. Um, I may, I may or may not have had an idea of what I thought God was, but I didn't have a real sense of my own spirit and self rooted in this plane and an awareness that there are other planes, right? So if you come from like a traditional religious background, you might think, okay, this is the earth plane, but then there is a heaven plane. Or hell plane, or if you're Catholic, there's a purgatory plane, right? Or if you are like from a Buddhist tradition, you know, um, there is the Pure Land or um, Hungry Ghosts, or you can come back, if this idea of multiple lifetimes, you can come back as an animal or insect, or you know what I mean? If you were from more of a maybe Native American indigenous spiritual perspective, and I don't know a lot about this, but I know that they do recognize the energy and spirit in like plants or rocks, other organic formations. So, whatever kind of path leads you to understanding that there is not only a spiritual self, but a spiritual self with a journey that progresses to someplace, right? That it's not like this static journey. So I think of that as consciousness. I talk a lot about self awareness. And when we talk about self awareness, it's really dealing more with the physical self. How do I come across when I speak? Do people perceive me as rude or do they perceive me as kind? How do I come across to myself? How do I treat myself? Noticing things about the way that I engage with myself, and then noticing about the way I engage with other people is that self-awareness, right? There's two levels of self-awareness. I write about it in my book, The Anger Myth, if you ever want to get deeper into that. Because the anger myth is about so much more about anger, more than anger. It is really about this path to mind-blowing happiness, the juiciness of knowing yourself and going through these levels of self-expression so that ultimately that we can, live in purpose and have incredible joy and fulfillment and satisfaction in our lives. But so there is this level of self-awareness, but consciousness is more the awareness of that non-physical self, right? So if self-awareness is the awareness of the physical self, what I like, what I don't like, how people see me, how they don't see me, how I function in this world, then consciousness is more of an awareness of the non-physical. And that's why it's so nice to tap into things like meditation, because that's where we really get to break away from the physical body, which is normally, we have to feed it, we have to rest it. If you're like me, you got to give it supplements, So we do all of these things. Um, so I pulled some information from ChatGPT, and I'm going to share this with you because I asked, well, what does it mean to be conscious? And I wanted to see what it came back with. So it gave me a few points. The first one, it says awareness of the present moment. So, this is what we typically talk about as mindfulness. And I know that when I was younger, I really was not mindful. I was moving from thing to thing. I was moving through trauma and triggers and acting out and numbing and just doing all kinds of things. It was later in life, maybe in my 30s, when I started getting more aware in the present moment so that I could sit in a moment like this when I'm live. I have no idea who's watching or who's going to watch the recording, but I can sit in this moment and really appreciate it. Appreciate that I'm able to be here, that I can do this. So being present is more than just going through the moment, through the motions. It's being able to really recognize where you are, to be grateful, to notice your emotions, your sensations, your surroundings. And it is part of the foundation for emotional intelligence, being self aware, of course, and also being mindful. Another comment that came back here was this is from chat, what it means to be conscious. So they say here, recognizing mental habits and conditioning. I agree. So I'm going through these live. I haven't read them before, actually. So I will agree with this. Recognizing mental habits and conditioning. The anger myth, the subtitle is Understanding and Overcoming the Mental Habits That Steal Your Joy. So I don't know if chat's talking to me like that because it knows that I'm very much into this idea of mental habits. Like we think that, well, I have this certain personality and this is just the way that I am. It's the way you are now. You can change the way you are if you put attention to it. A lot of our mental habits are the way that we respond to triggers, whether or not we allow people to, you know, um, push our buttons or make us angry. So, being conscious is partly that awareness of what our habits are, not just our physical habits, like if, we work out every morning, but how do we respond emotionally to things? And what have we been conditioned to do? Because we get conditioned from our parents, we get conditioned from society, we get conditioned from our entertainment and our culture. So yes, I will agree. I will sign off on that. The next, I guess, tip or idea around being conscious is this idea of living with intention versus reaction. And conscious living is very intentional. So far, I'm agreeing with these notes. I like them a lot. I talk a lot about intention. You know, when I do these lives on Thursdays, I'm coming right from teaching a yoga class, and I love to start classes with intention setting. One of my favorite quotes is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I've had times that, listen, I am guilty of all the things I speak. So I've had times in my life where I was just doing stuff, or I was doing what I thought somebody wanted me to do or what society taught me to do. And I just kind of went through the motions. And then sometimes you might end up someplace you don't want to be. I can't tell you how many people I know who pursued, wonderful careers, doctors, lawyers, but then they get there and they're like, wow, I really don't like it here. How do I get out of what I just put myself into? And it could be a marriage too, right? It could be a friendship, right? So any kind of situation that maybe you just kind of stumble into, and then you get there and you think, oh, do I really want to be here? So living with intention, deciding what you want to pursue based on a real knowing of who you are is part of what I would consider as consciousness. Um, the next thing that comes up on my little list here is connection to something greater, which is really where I started. I think consciousness really is, in yoga, we talk about self with the little s and self with the big S. And the self with the big S is like, it's yourself that is conscious, that is connected to something bigger than you, whether it is an idea of God or it's an idea of, a higher power or a spirit or just a organized universe, whatever that is, that there is a connection, that there is an awareness that there's something beyond yourself. And the last note here is that a conscious person learns to observe without being consumed, that you are the watcher. I know this comes up in work, I think, from Eckhart Tolle. And it also becomes very apparent when you meditate that there is an observation that takes place. And sometimes, if you go deep, you may even have like an out of body experience where you feel the observation more dramatically, where you may feel like you're looking at yourself. I've had that experience a few times. Um, and one of the ways that we meditate, maybe I'll do it next week, is to see our thoughts as clouds so that we don't have to follow every thought. We can just acknowledge it, say, okay, I see you, and let it go without having every thought be something that you need to react to or something that you need to judge. All right, so the idea of being the witness. Um, and then I talk a lot about leadership and what it means to be a leader, what it means to be an authentic leader, but what about what it means to be a conscious leader? To lead from a place of not just authority, but of self knowledge, of awareness, of connection to something bigger than you, whether it is a mission or purpose or a spiritual connection. Um, so leading from a space of consciousness, it'll be helpful for the people that you lead, whether it's your children or your team or your partner or your community. But it'll also be helpful to you. Because I tell you, the saddest thing that I see is people who are up in their years who don't know who they are. And when I was a little girl, I would never, I mean, I don't know that I would was thinking about like that anyway, but like I thought adults knew everything. It would have never occurred to me as a child that, I wonder if my father knows who he is. I wonder if my mother knows who she is. So something to think about. So I want to give you a couple of takeaways that you can kind of take with you as you move through the week. One is a really simple affirmation. We were using it today in yoga. Inhale, I, exhale, am. Inhale, I, exhale, am. You can do that if you are going to sleep. You can do that in just a seated kind of stillness, quiet meditation or sitting quietly. You can do it if you are actually practicing yoga. I mean, honestly, you could do it anywhere, but you probably don't want to do it when you're driving. But that's a very simple mantra because so often we think that our value comes from what we're doing, that it's external, that we have to get the new job, we have to, get the new house, we got to get the new car, we got to get the new outfit. We need people to look at us and see how great we are. Look at me, I've got all the things, I've got all the things. When in reality, the real flex is what's going on inside. So can you just be and not have all the things that the capitalist society tells us we're supposed to have? Or have it, but people don't need to know, right? So inhale I, exhale am, let yourself just be, and see how that feels. All right, let's close out. So bring your palms to touch. Take the right hand to the heart, left hand to the belly. We're going to take 3 breaths together again. Inhale through the nose. And exhale with a sigh through the mouth. Again, inhale through the nose. And exhale. And the last one, inhale through the nose. This time, hold the breath at the top for just a beat or two, and then release it with a loud sigh. All right. So if you're watching me on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share. And if you're not getting my newsletter, Mind Blowing Monday 123, or if you are not registered for the Mind Blowing Happiness Circle, go ahead and go on my website. It's trishahjelroberts.com, or you can go on mindblowinghappiness.com and get yourself registered. You will get on Mondays 1 quote, 2 questions, and 3 ways to lead with joy for the week ahead. It'll also let you know if I have any in-person things going on or special offers. There's always something good going on with me. As a matter of fact, we have something coming up in the month of November. We have a special digital vision boarding workshop. It's going to be 3 sessions. I'll put the link in the notes here as well so you can check it out. And that is it. I wish you all freedom, alignment, and effortless abundance. Enjoy.